Well, hello everybody. How are you? I have a feeling one of my recordings went out there on my shorts instead of where it belonged in a philosophical classroom, which is kind of ridiculous since no reason for it to be out there. But that's okay. We are here in the reading room now. And so a little bit of yeah, I saw that I lost part of my last class, so I have to do something about it technologically speaking, which is always a ugh. But we're going ahead and read our next two chapters, and we are getting close. We are getting close. So, chapter 20, we are on in Be Careful What You Wish For. I don't know how long I sat there on the stoop, hugging myself, my head lowered, my mind in a total spinning panic. I would have sat there forever, listening to the banging shutter, listening to the wind blow through the deserted street, if my stomach hadn't started to growl and grumble. I stood up, suddenly remembering that I had missed my breakfast. Sam, you're all alone in the world. How can you think about eating? I asked myself aloud. Somehow it was comforting to hear a human voice, even though it was my own. I'm starving, I shouted. I listened for a response. It was really stupid, but I refused to give up hope. This is all Judith's fault, I muttered, picking my bike up from the street. I rode home through the empty streets, my eyes searching the deserted yards and houses. As I passed the Carter's house on the corner of my block, I expected their little white terrier to come yapping after my bike the way he always did. But there wasn't even any dogs left in my world. There weren't even any dogs left in my world, not even my poor little pumpkin. There was just me, Samantha Bird, the last person on earth. As soon as I got home, I rushed into the kitchen and made myself a peanut butter sandwich. Gobbling it down, I stared at the open peanut butter jar. It was nearly empty. How am I going to feed myself? I wondered aloud. What do I do when the food runs out? I started to fill a glass with orange juice, but I hesitated and filled it up only halfway. Do I rob the grocery store? I asked myself. Do I just take the food I need? Is it really robbing if there's no one there? If there's no one anywhere? Does it matter? Does anything matter? How can I take care of myself? I'm only 12, I shouted. For the first time, I felt the urge to cry. But I jammed another hunk of peanut butter sandwich into my mouth and forced the urge away. Instead, I turned my thoughts to Judith, and my unhappiness and fear quickly gave way to anger. If Judith hadn't made fun of me, hadn't tried to embarrass me, if Judith hadn't constantly sneered at me and said, "Bird, why don't you just fly away?" and all the other horrible things she'd said to me, then I never would have made any wishes about her, and I wouldn't be all alone now. I hate you, Judith, I screamed. I jammed the last section of sandwich into my mouth, but I didn't chew. I froze, and listening, I heard something. Footsteps. Someone walking in the living room. Chapter 21. I swallowed the sandwich section whole and went tearing into the living room. Mom, Dad, were they back? Were they really back? No. I stopped in the living room doorway when I saw Clarissa. She was standing in the center of the room, her black hair reflecting the light from the front window, a pleased smile on her face. Her bright red shawl was draped loosely over her shoulders. She wore a long black jumper over a white, high-collared blouse. You! I cried breathlessly. How did you get in? She shrugged. Her smile grew wider. Why did you do this to me? I shrieked, my anger bursting out of me. How could you do this to me? I demanded, gesturing at the empty room, the empty house. I didn't, she replied quietly. She walked to the window. In the bright afternoon sunlight, her skin appeared pale and wrinkled. She looked so old. But I sputtered, too furious to speak. You did it, she said, her smile fading. You made the wish. I granted it. I didn't wish for my family to disappear, I screamed, striding into the room, my hands balled into tight fists. I didn't wish for everyone in the world to disappear. You did that. You. You wished for Judith Bellwood to disappear, Clarissa said, adjusting the shawl on her shoulders. I granted the wish as best as I knew how. No, you tricked me, I insisted angrily. She snickered. Magic is often unpredictable, she said. I figured you would not be happy with your last wish. That is why I have returned. You have one more wish. Would you like to make it now? Yes, I exclaimed. I want my family back. I want all the people back. Be careful, she warned, pulling a red glass ball from the purple bag. Think carefully before you make your final wish. I am trying to repay your kindness to me. I do not wish you to be unhappy with the results of your wish. I started to reply but stopped. She was right. I had to be careful. I had to make the right wish this time, and I had to say it the right way. Take your time, she urged softly. Since this is your final wish, it shall be permanent. Be very careful. I stared into her eyes as they turned from black to red, reflecting the red glow of the ball in her hand, and I thought as hard as I could, what should I wish for? I'm going to read another chapter. That was 20 and 21. 22. The light from the living room window faded as clouds rolled over the sun. As the light dimmed, the old woman's face darkened. Deep black ruts formed beneath her eyes. Lines creased her forehead. She seemed to sag into the shadows. Here is my wish, I said in a trembling voice. I spoke slowly, carefully. I wanted to consider each word. I didn't want to slip up this time. I didn't want to give her a chance to trick me. I am listening, she whispered, her face completely covered by shadow now, except for her eyes, glowing as red as fire. I cleared my throat. I took a deep breath. Here is my wish, I repeated carefully. I wish for everything to return to normal. I want everything to be exactly the way it was, but I hesitated. Should I finish this part of it? Yes, I told myself. I want everything to be the way that it was, but I want Judith to think that I'm the greatest person who ever lived. I will grant your third wish, she said, raising the glass ball high. Your second wish will be canceled. Time will back up this morning. Goodbye, Samantha. Goodbye, I said. I was swallowed up by the radiating red glow when it faded. Clarissa had vanished. Do you think it was a good idea? Sam, rise and shine. My mother's voice floated up to the room from downstairs. I sat straight up in my bed, instantly awake. Mom, I cried happily. I remembered everything. I remembered waking up in an empty house, in an empty world, and I remembered my third wish. But time had gone back to this morning. I glanced at the clock. 7. Mom was waking me up at the usual time. Mom, I leapt out of bed, ran downstairs in my nightshirt, and joyfully threw my arms around her, hugging her tight. Mom! Sam, are you okay? She stepped back, a startled expression on her face. You running a fever? Good morning, I cried happily, hugging Pumpkin, who seemed just as startled. Is Dad still home? I was so eager to see him too, to know that he was back. He left a few minutes ago, Mom said, still examining me suspiciously with her eyes. Oh, Mom, I exclaimed. I couldn't conceal my happiness. I hugged her again. Whoa, I heard Ron enter the kitchen behind us. I turned to see him staring back at me, his eyes narrowed in disbelief behind his glasses. I ran over and hugged him too. Mom, what did you put in her orange juice? He demanded, struggling to back away from me. Yuck, let go of me. Mom shrugged. Don't ever ask me to explain your sister, she replied dryly. She turned to the kitchen cabinets. Go get dressed, Sam. You don't want to be late. What a beautiful morning, I exclaimed. Yeah, beautiful, Ron repeated, yawning. You must have had some terrific dreams or something, Sam. I laughed and hurried upstairs to get dressed. I couldn't wait to get to school. I couldn't wait to see my friends, to see the halls filled once again with talking, laughing faces. Pedaling my bike as hard as I could, I grinned every time a car passed. I loved seeing people again. I waved at Mrs. Miller across the street, bending to pick her up her morning newspaper. I didn't even mind it when the Carter's terrier came chasing after my bike, barking his high-pitched yips and nipping at my ankles. Good dog, I cried gleefully. Everything is normal, I told myself. Everything is wonderfully normal. I opened up the front door to the school to the sound of crashing locker doors and shouting kids. Great, I cried aloud. A sixth grader came tearing around the corner and bumped right into me, practically knocking me over as I made my way to my locker. I didn't cry out angrily. I just smiled. I was so happy to be back in school, back in my crowded, noisy school. Unable to stop grinning, I unlocked my locker and pulled open the door. I called out a cheerful greeting to some friends across the hall. I even said good morning to Mrs. Reynolds, our principal. "Hey, Stork," a seventh grade boy called to me. He made a funny face, then disappeared around the corner. I didn't care. I didn't care what anyone called me. The sound of so many voices was so wonderful. As I started to take off, I saw Judith and Anna arrive. They were busy chatting, both talking at once. But Judith stopped when she saw me. "Hi, Judith," I called wearily. I wondered what Judith would be like now. Would she treat me any differently? Would she be nicer to me? Would she remember how much she and I used to hate each other? Would she be any different at all? Judith gave Anna a long wave and came hurrying over to me. "Morning, Sam," she said, and smiled. Then she pulled off her wool ski cap, and I gasped. Uh-oh. Chapter 23, we're going to have to see what she gasped about when we come back. That might be, we'll probably finish up 23. What's the last chapter number? 26. But they're short chapters. So we're probably going to finish up on tomorrow. So this is Dr. Annette Feravich. Dr. Annette, if you are 12 or younger, 10 or younger, whatever. And we are here in the classroom. This is the reading room, and I am the teacher. Thanks for joining me. I will see you back